In this lesson, we'll use the Type on a Path tool to create some numbers to go with our measurement lines we created. Okay, so I'm just going to zoom in on those measurement lines we created, and I need to create a path that's going to be a circle that goes all the way around the measurement lines that I already made. So just with my direct selection tool selected, I want to go ahead and group this all together first. So grab all of those, hit Control G to group them, and then we'll just go ahead, grab that ellipse tool and just kind of start in the middle and draw an ellipse out. Now it doesn't have to be perfect because we can always come in there, select both of those shapes that you see, and grab the Align tool, and we'll just do a horizontal align center and a vertical align center. And now those are perfectly centered. And now I can come in here to my Type tools and choose the Type on a Path tool. And that's going to give me this kind of weird little wavy stroke through the cursor, you see? And I can just click on that path and now I'll be able to type whatever I want to type on that same path. So I'm just going to start typing some numbers and putting little spaces in between the numbers. So we have a few tick lines here that I want to represent. So I'm just going to start counting by tens and we'll just see how far we get. It's probably going to be, let's see, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. So we'll want to put in 16 values for this line. So I'm just going to start at 0, then I'll put a space and I will count by tens. So I'll go 0, 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100. And that's going to give me 10 values so far. So we need 6 more. So we'll do 110, 120, 130, 140, and 150. And that gives us all 16 values that we need. So now we can distribute these pretty easily along this path simply by using our tracking. So come over here and I'm just going to grab that character panel and pull this out here so it's a little bit easier for you to see. And I'll grab my selection tool so that I'm selecting my whole entire circle here. And then I'll just start pulling this out for the tracking. So I'm just kind of clicking this one by one, but if I want to make it go faster, I can hold down Shift and click it, and it's going to move it by the tens. So we'll pull this until it gets all the way around here. And you can see that now those numbers are distributed pretty well all along this circle. And at first glance, this looks pretty good, but we've also changed all of the spacing in between our letters themselves. So this tracked our whole line, and you may want to have the numbers look a little bit more close together. Now, I think that this looks pretty interesting, so I'm going to keep that one and actually duplicate it, and we'll keep this one maybe off and find a different place to use it later. But this one I want to go ahead and fix so that the numbers are right on top of the tick marks that they represent. So I'm going to go back in here and set the tracking back to 0. And then what I'm going to do is grab my cursor and just kind of start spacing these over using the space bar until I get them into place. And then I can go back in later on and adjust them even more if I need to. So this isn't maybe the absolute best way for you to do this if you really wanted it to be perfect, but as I said earlier in our second or third lesson, whenever we were just talking about, you know, this isn't meant to be the absolute end all be all of functionality. We still just want this to look pretty. So instead of spending a lot of time trying to figure out the perfect, most exact placement for these numbers, we just want it to look really good, because in the end, this is going to be so small and far away from the camera, it's going to be really hard to even tell that they're actually numbers that are even written in English at all. So you just have to, you know, take into consideration how much time am I spending on this for how much it's actually going to be seen in the end. So that was pretty quick and easy for me to do just by using the spacebar, and you can see how that distribution just looks a little bit different from what you saw here, even though this still looks very interesting. So maybe we take something like this and Alt drag that, and we could put this maybe on the inside of the same piece. So maybe just kind of drag that down like that and select everything. Come over here to your Align panel and choose to horizontally and vertically align those objects. So really interesting setup now, really starting to get something that feels like it's been created as a measurement system. And something kind of interesting maybe you want to do, instead of using that same PFDIN font, you could use a font that had old style numbers. So I have one called Kievet, and whenever I use Kievet and have the all caps turned on, you can't see it, but if I turn off that all caps, you can get the lowercase numbers, and that's going to give you, see how I have these numbers now that some of them go below, like this 3 goes below the baseline, my 6 and my 8 go above the baseline. So kind of interesting, but you will have to go back inside and kind of redistribute as far as where those numbers are going to end up if you want them to be perfectly on your little tick marks. So makes it a little more difficult once you change the font after you've kind of arranged everything, but I really like the look of those lowercase numbers on a measurement device like this. Kind of just makes it look a little more sophisticated, maybe a little more interesting. Whether or not you would see that actually in the real world, it's still believable enough. So I'm just kind of going through here and deleting some of those spaces, and then maybe I'll come back in here and add some of the ones I deleted earlier, just so we can get this to fit back on the same tick mark kind of distribution that we had earlier. So just kind of right there, and you know, we're back to where we started, but we just have kind of more interesting numbers there on the outside. If you want that 0 to have a little bit of a different look to it, you can, if you want this to perfectly align with that orange line, you can hold down Alt and hit the arrow over key, and that will fix that for you. So few little tricks for you to use with your typography of your numbers to get that really looking perfect, and just play around with it. Try lots of different things to get different types of numbers, and it's going to look different again, you know, if you had more of these longer tick marks in between. So maybe go back in and create another set so that you could have more numbers that correspond with the ticks, or just, you know, grab these numbers that we had here and put them around something without ticks. It's still all going to be kind of going together in the same radial dial look that we're working with here. So in this lesson, we learned that we can easily create number measurements that line up with the lines that we created in our earlier lessons.